Hey people, C² here, and today I want to finally answer that burning question that not one person has ever asked, and that is, what's in my camera bag? So one of the really cool things about the Micro Four Thirds system is that you just don't need that big of a bag to carry a lot of gear. So this is the Low Pro Tahoe BP 150, and it's a pretty modest little bag, but I can get a lot of gear in this bag because the cameras and lenses just aren't that big. So as you can see, kind of a normal little compartment area here, but I can get 2 bodies and 4 lenses easily in here and then still have some room left over for a couple of other things. Now this bag also has, as most camera bags do, some room for a tablet and just other things, SD cards, batteries, and so forth. So there's plenty of room here for most of my needs. And if I'm doing something where I don't need a whole lot of audio recording equipment, this little bag holds pretty much everything, including a Rode video mic or anything like that. So if you're one of the 5 or 6 people who's watched any of my other videos, you might already know that I use the Panasonic Lumix GH5, and that's really the heart of my system, and that's the camera I'm shooting on right now. That camera is like a perfect balance for me, hybrid of stills and video features, but it might be a little bit heavier on the video features than the stills features, but that's okay with me because I do a little bit more video than I do stills at this point anyway. So I'm not going to talk too much about the GH5 because I've already done a number of videos on it recently, and maybe I'll link one of them up here somewhere. But moving on from that, I also use the G85, which is kind of like a little GH5 that's been put in the dryer and shrunk down just a little bit. While the G85 may not be quite as robust as the GH5 in terms of all the different video features and frame rates and things like that, it does have a lot of the main stuff that I use the most, and it has the flip out screen, and it does 4K, and it just makes a good little B camera. It matches well with the GH5. It's a little bit smaller, but like I said, it's kind of very similar, just like you shrunk a GH5 a little bit. So anyway, great little camera to have in addition to a GH5. When it comes to lenses for this system, I use the 12 to 35 millimeter f2.8 version 2 a lot, and as a matter of fact, that's what's filming me right now. That's kind of the workhorse. It's sort of a similar thing to having a 24 to 70 on a full frame. Not quite as much light getting in there, of course, because f2.8 on a Micro Four Thirds system is definitely not the same as f2.8 on a full frame. But anyway, still very useful and a very effective lens. And a really cool thing is that it's compatible with the dual IS with the GH5, so you can get some really smooth handheld movement with that camera with that lens on it. So moving on from there, when I have other needs from the lenses, I have a few things to kind of augment this selection. And right here is the obvious choice of a telephoto counterpart to the 12 to 35. It's the 35 to 100 f2.8 version 2, and it also has the really good dual IS feature. So again, really cool for video with that image stabilization, and you can also get still shots with a lot slower shutter speed without the camera shake. So anyway, great lens there. So moving on from there, another lens that I use that has the ability for the dual IS is the little 42.5 f1.7. So this little lens, it's not quite as fast as I'd like it to be. I would love to have the 1.2, the Nocticron lens, but that thing's really expensive, and I just don't use this focal length enough yet to really warrant that expense. So this has been a great little lens to have, though, for the price. It's actually pretty affordable, and like the others, it's compatible with dual image stabilization. So this little lens is really small, but it feels pretty robust in its construction, and it pairs super well with the size of body of the G85 being just a little smaller. So it makes a really powerful little small package when you put those together. So anyway, great lens there. And the other lens that I'm using now is the kind of classic of this setup. It's the 25 millimeter f1.4 Panasonic Leica lens, and this lens is not dual IS compatible. As a matter of fact, there's no image stabilization, but it's really great to have that 1.4 for your aperture. So anyway, if I need a fast lens and I want to get a shallow depth of field, this is what I've been going for. And this lens is, like I said, it's kind of a classic. It's been around a while. They probably need to update it and maybe even put something out like it with some image stabilization built built in. That'd be nice. But anyway, it's a great lens, and it's got great image quality, and I actually use it a pretty fair amount. Okay, another item that I use a lot is the Rode VideoMic Pro, and that is in use right now, but it's a very common item, and I'm sure you've seen a million of them. So anyway, that's always in the bag, and it goes with me pretty much everywhere. Now, if I need to run both cameras at the same time, and I need to get decent audio reference on both of them, I'll use the old Rode VideoMic that's not the Pro. It was before the Pro. It's a little bit big, but I'll usually use it too, and it still sounds pretty good because you don't really have to boost the preamp too much on these Lumix cameras. They sound pretty good like they are. So anyway, I take this one when I need it. And also good to have the little furry thing to knock down the wind noise whenever you need that. Now, if I need to do anything a little better with the audio, I'll take the Zoom H4n recorder, which I usually keep in this little protective thing. It's a little impractical, I guess, but it does keep it protected. So everybody's familiar with these things, the Zoom H4n. So anyway, it has these little XLR connectors on the bottom, so for that, if I need to, I will use the lav mic by Rode, and I have the little XLR connector, and I probably need to get that Tascam thing that everybody's using that you can just kind of hook on you and put in your pocket. But anyway, right now this is what I've been using, the Rode lav mic, in addition to the Zoom if needed. So when I need to take more audio equipment, I'll usually need to take a second little bag, and for that I just use this camcorder bag, and the camcorder has been retired, but it turns out to be kind of the perfect size for me to use for the H4n, the two Rode video mics, accessories, whatever I need to carry with them. And then I also will usually carry inside that bag the battery box that I take with me. So anytime I think I might need extra batteries, I take this with me, and I just carry pretty much every extra battery I can. It's sort of empty right now because I'm charging some of the batteries, but I'll take several extra batteries for each camera, and then a whole bunch of rechargeable AAAs and AA's, whatever I need. If I need to bring flashes with me or something like that, then I'll have those in there for it. And then also, of course, the Zoom will occasionally need extra batteries. So anyway, I always carry that with me. I also have this little box for extra SD cards that I keep in there by Bauer, and it's a pretty normal little box, nothing special, but it holds a few extra SD cards. Good to have that with you. As far as filters, the most important filter for me usually is the variable ND. So I use this Tiffin variable ND filter, and it is the size of the largest lenses that I need it for. So it's a 58 millimeter, which is the filter size for the 12 to 35 and the 35 to 100. And then for the other lenses, I just have these little rings by Sensei Pro, which will just adapt that to the size of each of those lenses, so I don't have to have multiple ND filters. Now, also on the topic of batteries, it's good to have a car charger for your batteries with you. So I have this little cheap car charger that came with two extra off-brand batteries for my GH5, but this can actually come in handy. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be a real fancy one, it doesn't have to be Panasonic, but it definitely helps to have it. So I also think it's really good to keep a remote with me, so I always tuck this little Velo remote for the GH5 in somewhere in the bag. I'm not a big fan of camera straps, but they are kind of a necessary evil, and Peak Design has come out with a lot of the best solutions I've seen for them. I really like the little system with the buttons that just kind of loop through on the camera, and then you can attach various Peak Design straps and so forth to them. And one of the things I use the most is this little wrist strap that they make. So you can just put that on, clip this through, and then you're not wearing something around you, and it just keeps you from feeling like you might drop the camera and really cause a catastrophe. So anyway, that's a really cool little thing I always stuff somewhere in the bag. And then as far as like a regular strap, I like this Peak Design strap here that kind of safely secures to the bottom of the camera with this little screw, and then there's a button, you know, one of their little button type latches on this end. And this you can use as sort of just a cross your shoulder type strap, and it's pretty comfortable, and it's real easy to kind of manage the camera with it without it feeling like, you know, the sort of old-fashioned tourist thing that hangs in front of you. But anyway, yeah, a good solution there. I am looking to eventually get the clip holder for the camera that just goes on the backpack. That's probably the best solution I've ever seen for carrying a camera with you. But they're a little expensive, so I've been putting off buying it, but I'm sure I'll be really glad I bought it when I finally do get one. Alright, the next thing on my list is the little Manfrotto mini tripod. It's small enough to just stuff it in the bag someplace and take it with you wherever you go, and that way you've always got something to put your camera on. And I trust it a little bit more than the GorillaPod. I've seen a lot of people have their GorillaPod fall over in these vlogging videos and stuff, so it kind of makes me a little afraid to use one. But the Manfrotto mini tripod here, this one has the extendable legs, which I like, and there's little notches for different lengths, so you can take them on out, do whatever you need to. If you want to vlog with it, you can adjust the little ball head to the angle you want, pull them out, and then you got some extra length there that you can use. So anyway, this little guy is pretty rigid, pretty sturdy. I really like it a lot, and definitely something that's worth having in your camera bag. Now, a lot of people will tell you the same thing, but it can't possibly be overstated. If you're doing something where you're going to have to use a fair amount of gear and it's not just putting a camera on a tripod, take some gaff tape. So find a place for it. You could even just get smaller rolls or whatever, but you need to have it with you. That's like one of the most important accessories for anybody who's into anything that uses stands and cables and all these kinds of things we have to use. Now, a couple of honorable mentions here at the end. I do like to carry the little 1/4-20 to a microphone stand adapter that I showed in a previous video. So that thing's extremely handy for adapting any type of camera equipment to a standard mic stand. Now, I always take mic stands with me and things like that when I need to do extra audio stuff. The tripod that I use for video is the Manfrotto 055X, I think it is, and that's what I'm using right now. And on top of that, I use a Manfrotto fluid head, which is the 502. And it's kind of a big fluid head for a small mirrorless camera like this, but it's really nice and smooth, so I do like it a lot. And then on top of it, like I've said before in a previous video, I do like to attach a Manfrotto ball head on top of it for sort of a versatile setup. Now, if I'm sure I'm just doing video, I'll usually just stick with the fluid head and mount the camera directly to it, but the ball head attached to the top of the fluid head makes for a pretty versatile situation, and it makes it easy for me to get the battery in and out of the camera when I need to. Now, I also like to carry an extra little tripod with me, and I don't have another good tripod, so I do just take a generic old tripod that I had when I had probably my first camcorder. So this thing is just some off-brand thing called Ambico, I guess, and it doesn't even have a good head on it or anything like that, but you can attach a camera to it if you need to, and if it's not terrible conditions, it will stay steady. So that's good, and it's quite light, so I just throw this thing in the trunk. It's always good to have it just in case I need it. So anyway, that's pretty much the whole thing. That's everything in my camera bag, and then some. So I hope you enjoyed checking this out, and if you enjoyed this video, click like, subscribe, and come back and see me soon. What's that, Niles? You want to know what's in my camera bag? Fraser, you want to know what's in my camera bag too? Not really.